Hola, bienvenidos a nuestro tercer evento Club STED del Colegio Montessori. Estamos orgullosos de representar este marco de la jornada de habilidades de comunicación de la secundaria superior con orientación a lenguas extranjeras. El programa Club STED apoya escuelas y organizaciones educativas que buscan embarcarse en la aventura de acompañar a sus estudiantes en el descubrimiento, la exploración y la presentación de ideas en forma de charlas cortas al estilo TED. En este espacio, las chicas y chicos de cuarto año lograrán comunicar al mundo lo que les interesa o les representa, lo que les apasiona o inquieta, esa idea única o personal que es valiosa de compartir con los demás. Y lo hacemos en inglés para que nuestras ideas lleguen todavía más lejos, si podemos, a todo el mundo. Después de pasar por el proceso, todos los que formamos parte del Club STED quedamos transformados. Además de mejorar las habilidades comunicativas en inglés, la tarea demanda pensamiento crítico, creatividad, investigación, trabajo colaborativo, comunicación efectiva, herramientas para la crítica constructiva, estrategias de oratoria, confianza en las capacidades propias, identificación de fortalezas y debilidades, tolerancia y respeto. Sabemos que no es fácil pararse frente a una audiencia y hablar, pero los chicos y chicas aceptaron el desafío y van a dar lo mejor de ellos. Les pedimos hacer silencio y escucharlos atentamente, bajar el sonido de sus celulares y aplaudirlos con ganas cuando terminen. Ahora sí, estamos listos. Our first speaker is Miranda Berazategui with her talk Expressing Myself Through Music.
Music has always been part of my life. In fact, it has become part of me. I grew up with it, I have learned from it, and I express myself in it. Since I was a baby, music has surrounded me, although I do not come from a family of musicians. But I remember waking up and sleeping at night with my mother singing for me, or being so excited to put the CDs on the speaker dressed as Snow White with my head full of little girls dancing around the house. Or even when I used to take out all the kitchen ornaments and the wooden spoons to put together a set of drums and flood my house with metal sounds. But the real journey of discovery started when I was 5 years old, when I started attending to an orchestra in my small town called Villaruiz with all other kids. I was shocked. I had the freedom to choose which instrument I wanted to start learning, and there was a variety of them that I had never seen before. That is how I started playing the clarinet. I tore into a new full language. I began to understand a side of life that I was not aware of before, another way to express myself. But I formed a union through music, a connection, which I have never felt with anything other than people. Many people who know me could tell you that I'm quite an anxious person. I always have to be doing something, or I'm not really concentrated in the present. My head is always anticipating, thinking in the future or overthinking situations from the past, on what I have to do, how I should have reacted. I can be having dinner and I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast for the next day. It's weird, but every time I play music, I'm 100% connected in the present. I hear the harmonies, I try to understand, I focus on the sounds, on the musical notes, the melodies. I let my head go off and my body expresses my feelings throughout. There's two beautiful quotes from Victor Hugo and Heinrich Heine that shows exactly the power of music. Victor Hugo said, music expresses that which cannot be said and on which is impossible to be silent. And Heine stated, when words leave off, music begins. I believe that playing music can bring us closer to that black hole in our heart that maybe we cannot name otherwise. It's like strumming your pain with your fingers and melodies hitting you like a memory. Some months ago, I contacted a music therapist named Sebastian Ruiz, who I was lucky enough to meet by chance. In our conversation, he told me that music itself is a process from musical resources which can generate a session of our desire, and launch a vital research process, can create a membership group, another way of seeing the world. He works with music because, like he said, it is presented as a super valuable tool to undertake the communication process and be able to channel our feelings, sensations, and express that which we prefer to be silent about. Through music, we can evoke moments of life. Sebastian mentioned that in this sense, music has the power of teletransportation, as if it were a kind of time machine, which is incredible. It can happen with smell, flavors, but they are more difficult to treasure. Music is recorded as the power of listening to a sound and remember a moment. For example, when I play an instrument, my mind brings me to a world of memories and situations. So I let my fingers express the pictures of my brain. In the end, I would like to do a little experiment. It is all about listening. I want you to close your eyes and try to concentrate on your inner music, in that deep place of your body where melodies are playing softly. And I'm going to play a really short part of a song called Love My Life from me. Thank you.
Let's listen to Sol Zapata. Let's listen to Sol Zapata with her song, Only Sides Closed, Shared Problem.
Imagine this. You just turned 15 years old and you get invited to your first quinceañera parties.
You realize that you don't have a lot of clothes for going to a party, so you decide to go shopping. When you enter to the first store, you realize that it is very small and there are not many clothes at sea. So when you start going through the clothes, you found it. The most beautiful and stunning dress you've ever seen. It has a beautiful neck with stones. So you try to give it a go. But when you grab it, you realize that it is very small. So you ask the sales lady, hey, do you have a bigger size? And she says the words that will grow with you the rest of your teenage years. No, it's a one size fits all. I have made a survey to prove that I am not the only one going through this, and here are the results. Okay, so the first thing I asked on my survey was, how old are you? And surprisingly, most of the answers were from people who are 30 to 50 years old, and that is because my mom shared it everywhere. So thank you. The second question was, which city do you generally buy your clothes on? Well, you can see that my poll luckily reached a lot of provinces and cities. You can see Córdoba, Mendoza, Corrientes, Colombia, Mexico. This also shows us how globalized the internet is nowadays. The third question was, what gender do you identify with in order to realize if this problem only affected women or also boys? And well, as you can see, most of the answers are from women. The next question was, has it ever happened to you that the smallest or the biggest size sold didn't fit you? Not, I can see that. 90% of the answers stood for a yes. It doesn't make sense. It is like putting a chairs in a city full of vegans. How does it make sense to sell clothes that aren't going to fit into the public? The next question was, how did you feel when that piece of clothing didn't fit you? And as you can see, all those feelings are negative. Sadness, exclusion, frustration, with a low self-esteem. So it is crazy that all because of a piece of fabric, all these feelings are generated. The next question was, have you ever not been able to wear a trendy item, for example, a top or a dress, because it was not on your size? And most of the answers again stood for a yes. So imagine all those people couldn't wear the item they wanted, the item their friends were wearing because they couldn't find it in their size. The next question was, when an item is one size fits all, does it generally fit you? Most of the answers stand for a no. So it doesn't make sense to make items that won't fit the customers. It just doesn't make sense. The next question was, how do you think a person can feel affected when they never find the clothes they like? And again, a lot of negative feelings, sadness, exclusion, low self-esteem. The next question was, do you think that you are represented on TV or at advertisements, for example? And look at the numbers. More than 90% of women said they do not feel represented by what they see on television, on advertisements. So that is crazy. I'll talk about it later. Finally, the 10th question was, do you know about the law 27.521, that it is called Sistema Único Normalizado de Identificación de Talles de Indumentaria? And most of the answers stood for a no, so there is not a lot of knowledge about this topic. And finally, the last question was, what would you like to tell about, what would you like to tell to makers, to the people who are in charge of making the clothes? Look at all these answers. Just be realistic, respect all bodies, sell clothes for real people. This is all answers from people like you who have answered my poll. Okay, so now we can understand that there are a lot of consequences for never being able to buy the clothes you want. For example, apart from feeling terrible, sad, and excluded, you can develop body dysmorphia or eating disorders just because you feel like you are not enough. So if you were lucky to born with a small body, that's okay. You will always find clothes for you. But if you haven't, feel empathy for the ones that didn't. Because at the end, you end up feeling guilty just because you are bigger than that little tiny dress. So, in fact, the shops that sell one-size-fits-all items are illegal because in the law 27.521, it establishes that all sizes are made up from a measurement to society, and in this measurement, there does not exist a one size. So it's completely illegal to sell that kind of clothes. Also, going back to my previous question of do you feel represented by what you see on TV, the television makers and the advertisement makers want us to feel insecure about ourselves because if we feel insecure, it is easier for them to sell us the magical products that will make us as we should look, hairless, tan, skinny, blonde, and as a result of all of this, we will end up being happy. But no, being beautiful according to the beauty standards will not make us happy or better persons. We have to understand that there are as many types of beauty as people in the planet. And once we understand this, there aren't going to be any more problems about it. So what can we do to avoid more damage? The first thing we can do is not buying on shops that sell one size fits all because we are the consumers. We are the ones that manage the market. But then we have to follow the most difficult step, that is changing our minds on our beauty standard. Because we have to start loving ourselves, every part of our body, our hair, our breasts, our nose, our weight, of course, still being healthy, mentally and physically. But we do not need to fit into clothes. Clothes need to fit us, whatever is our size. And that is why I don't believe in one size fits all. Thank you.
Next is Sofia Chauet with her talk, Did Dyslexia Affect My Learning?
Have you ever heard about dyslexia? Dyslexia affects me and thousands of people. Once in fourth grade, I had an English test. Everyone got a mark of at least 7 out of 10, but I got a 4. This frustrated me. I thought that I was an idiot because I was the only one at the class that. I also hid my grade from them because I was ashamed that they found out that I was the only one who failed the exam. My parents got really angry at that and disappointed. I was ashamed. It scared me because I thought that I was different. I was enough. My parents started investigating about different obstacles that some children could have when they began studying. They sent me to see a psychopedagogue. Her treatment wasn't useful at all because she told me that I have an unsolved issue with my parents rather than a learning problem. That frustrated me and my parents. They decided to send me to a therapist. The therapist told me that I didn't have any issue with anyone rather than a learning issue. She told me that I have a different way of studying and learning. So she told me that I could have dyslexia. This brought my parents and me some kind of peace of mind because now we knew what was bothering us. According to Wright, dyslexia is a difficulty learning to read and write, often associated with motor coordination disorders. At the time, my parents contacted the authorities in my school and gave them a certificate. They told the teachers that I was dyslexic. Unfortunately, teachers were not trained to help people with these characteristics. The problem that still affects me is that some teachers don't take my dyslexia seriously or authorities do not even tell them about it. Some people think that dyslexia is a mental illness, when in fact it's not. Um, Dyslexia is a different way that some people have of learning certain topics that kids have to absorb in school. Children with dyslexia most of the time have difficulties with reading and writing. They also feel drained because they spend more time than others trying to learn these subjects. that are basics before entering to school or in first grade. Vowels change places sometimes. Consonants have different shapes. In my case, instead of reading a letter B, I see a D, and so on with different letters and even numbers. On the other hand, someone who has dyslexia had other abilities. In my case, I am really good when it comes to time to organize my tasks and my schedule. People can compensate with their strengths. As I said before, dyslexia is not an illness. It is a different way to learn. Having this in mind, we can help people who struggle with it by suggesting them to go to therapy. There are many specialists that could help with it. As my psychopedagogist Veronica Shornet told me, the speed of thought of a person with dyslexia is significantly slower than others. It is very important to take into account when asking them to make personal introductions or tests. There are different tools that could help people with dyslexia. For example, when they have to deliver an assignment, it is better to do it with a computer. Another one is that sorry, they could do, what they could do is practice self-management. That would help without them feeling tired. Those were some of the tools that helped me not feeling tired after school. Maybe you do not pay attention to your kids' performance at school. You could just you could just think they are lazy because they came back from school and feel tired and just want to sleep, or have bad grades because of spelling mistakes or errors when it comes to time to read out loud. As I said before, these are common symptoms of dyslexia. So instead of getting angry at them, you could just take a moment, talk, and see them from a different perspective to detect the problem and help them manage it. Now that I give you this information, would you pay more attention to your children's needs whenever talking about school? Thank you.
Let's listen to Trinidad Shea with her talk. Feeling alone or being lonely?
Your life doesn't have to be empty because you aren't with someone. This the that was me when I was 14 years old at a family gathering. Hide and seek, I was a lonesome teenager. I mean, everybody had their life planned, everybody but me. I was on a limbo. Although I was sitting at the table with 10 other people around me, among them my parents and my grandparents, I was mentally alone, just me and myself. At one end of the table, I could see my younger cousins. I didn't find the idea of playing with them attractive. If I turned my head to the other end, I could see the other perspective, the adults. They were making politician shows who I never understood, but I laughed anyway, just to see if someone looked at me and noticed my presence. When I realized that wasn't my place neither. I was on a balance between childhood and adulthood, without knowing which I did more. Many people have always talked about being alone as a bad thing, but I think that being alone can be a choice. It's pleasant not to want to be with someone or enjoy your solitude from time to time. This is very different from feeling lonely. This one is an emotion, something that is probably suffered at all ages, but I think that an adolescent is when it most reaches our minds and hearts. A sentence written by Alice Keller in one of her notes reflects how I feel about this topic. It is evident that we are too short wanting to fit in a world full of squares. I think this has to do with my perspective since it's true that we, teenagers, are sometimes weak. We seek to isolate ourselves from society by staying alone just because we don't fit into society. There is a reason why psychology is so abused in these days. Perhaps because we feel so lonely that we need someone who really listens to us. Or maybe just because we need someone who understands us without being judged. That's why I requested an interview with a psychologist specialized in adolescents, and we came to this conclusion. The definition of solitude is to be alone by self-will and enjoy. Loneliness is a subjective feeling where the person experiences the absence of personal relationship. They are two faces of the same coin. According to psychology, loneliness can be dangerous, and it can appear when the adolescent doesn't know who he is or who he wants to be. It will depend on the human quality, the values, and the environment where the adolescent is immersed. I'm telling this because some teenagers lack the attention of their parents, and that makes them feel ignored. They suffer from not being looked at. The psychology told me that adults sometimes minimize situations that are important for teenagers, and this can lead them to pathologies due to carelessness, just like self-harm, drugging, or abandonment. Adolescents need more than ever the accompaniment, good communication, presence, and support of their parents who listen and contain, being models of great people, examples for life, and above all, close to create a bond of love where you can dialogue freely without fear or judgment, where unconditional love is something natural, and build this dynamic in the family so all its members can achieve it well. My purpose today is not to denounce any adult, but on the contrary, I'm here to raise awareness that these situations shouldn't be minimized, but so that they understand that anyone can suffer from feeling lonely and that isn't bad. I am here so that you understand that not always the one who is present accompanying us is the one who is attentive to what happens to us. And it's fine because there is always going to be someone who hears our cry for help. You just have to dare to shout. Thanks.
We now introduce to Gine Garcia Vallejos with his talk, How Cars Evolved Through Time.
Well, since I was little, my dad and my uncle took me to car meetings, but there is one that I remember very fondly, and I risked saying that it was one of the best days of my life. I was 5 years old. It was very quiet. It was a very quiet Saturday of November, and I remember waking up very anxious and happy because it had been a long time since I went to a car meeting of this type. Uh, we finished lunch and I started the trip to the Juan y Oscar Alves. It's a restaurant here in Buenos Aires. When we arrived, we couldn't believe the number of cars there were. It took us about an hour to get in. Entering, I was totally fascinated with all the cars there were. There were Japanese, American, Europeans. I couldn't believe it. They were all my dream cars, and there were also motorcycles, which I also like a lot. Bikes, some friends of my uncle, who a couple of cars present there, decided to let me get in one of their cars and even gave me 2 laps in the circuit. Obviously, I was the co-pilot. Adrenaline, fear, happiness, adoration, pleasure were some of the emotions I felt at the moment. It is to this day that I deeply thanks to that people for meeting me to that ride because thanks to them I feel for the first time the sensation of the speed and I discovered that I really love it. So with all the curiosity of a child, I decided to find out more how cars evolved during history. Mercedes-Benz were the ones who created the first car in history, and it looked like this. On January 29, 1886, Carl Benz applied for a patent for his vehicle powered by a gas engine. As you can see, it was like a It was like to a carriage with three wires but wheels. And from from 19 from 1900 to 1930, car manufacturers focus on improving performance. And some of the most important inventions are the electric power car, the multiple engine, the supercharged engine, and the four-wheel independent suspension. From 1949 to 1940, from 1949 to 1980, the security process started. For the first time, development of every new car would include a rigorous regimen of crash testing, and because of this, the invention of the ABS is one of the biggest developments in modern automotive engineering. engineering. Uh, but at this time, not only security measures were developed. In my personal opinion, this was the most important time in the development of cars because fundamental things were created. For example, air conditioning, airbags, seat belts, um, and they also create things that are not so fundamental but are made for maximum comfort, such as electric windows, cassette, and digital dashboard displays. What I have been able to analyze is that from the 90s to the present, the industry have been created things so that we drive less and less. For example, the automatic parking and the autopilot. Although they also create some very important ads like the reversing cameras. Now, the biggest debate of all time, electric cars. The government wants all cars to go electric by 2035, which is very complicated because the manufacturers have confirmed that there is not enough energy to supply an entire market of electrics. In addition to not taking into account the pollution by so many dead batteries. Also, changing the battery of this car is very expensive. In the case of some cars, it is convenient to buy a new vehicle to change the battery, which means that they are not as cheap as they really say. The electric ones, for us who like cars and more sports cars, do not like electric ones. As Horacio Pagani said, the creator of Pagani, the famous brand of cars, they lack of emotion. That the roar of the engine is missing is something that makes us very sad. Anyways, I have to admit that for the daily use, they are very comfortable and easy to use. So, if you're looking to buy an electric at some point to help the environment, it's not your best option. Wait for the hydrogen cars that are the future of automotive. Don't buy just for fashion. Thank you.
It is our next turn to present her talk, How Eating Disorders Affect Us.
In 2020, it happened a pandemic on our planet, and this affected me in an important way. I started to overthink everything and to figure what I do. Then I saw a series which gave me an idea. What if I do not think anymore? And that's what I did. But at what point that was not enough, so I started to throwing up every night. After a year and a half, I started to go into a psychologist because I had had panic attacks. So I told her everything and she told me that I have an eating disorder and that I have to tell my parents. So I told them everything and I started a treatment. But this is just my story. Then over the world there are more millions of stories about eating disorders and here I am to tell you why it's important to talk about it. In my opinion, eating disorders are a very serious disease which many people do not know much about it. Maybe they know that they are ready to food or something like that, but it's different for that because it thinks you in a way that you can control. You think that someone is manipulating you in a way that you can control, in a way that someone is directly manipulating you. And at the same time, that person is yourself. You hate yourself in a way that you can control. But now you might be asking some technical questions, here I am to tell you the answers. But let's start with the beginning. What are the eating disorders? Eating disorders are a group of mental illnesses that lead to the development of unhealthy eating habits. They might start with an obsession with food, regardless of body shape. But how many types of eating disorders are and what are the most chronic ones? Well, according to the psychiatrist Hugo Varela, you have the anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and diagnostic eating disorders. But according to him, and the most chronic ones are anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. But according to headline, there are two more. The binge, that is when you know it with control and you um, you eat with no control with a lot of milk, most commonly known as atracón in Spanish. And the avoiding restrictive food intake disorders, which is when you restrict some kind of food or something like that. According to the OMS, Argentina is the second country with more eating disorders around the world after Japan. Um, and according to the Spanish Society of General and Family Psychiatrists, most commonly known as SEMG, 70% of the adolescents don't feel comfortable with their body. 6 out of 10 girls believe that they would be happier if they were thinner. And 30% of them rebel pathological behavior. But maybe you are thinking that eating disorders are only a girl's problem, and that is wrong. Eating disorders also affect men and boys, and is more chronic in their cases. So this is our reality. An eating disorder can kill you. So we have to act. Doing what? Well, if you know someone who is dealing with an eating disorder, you have to first call out a professional. And then you have to, as a person, what you can do is trying to understand them, educate yourself about eating disorders, monitor how to talk about body image um, or food, and remember that recovery is a process. According to Longarella, the psychiatrist, and I'm quoting, they are a wake-up call that something is chronically not right, but it is something much more than a wake-up call. It is part of an important disease that can be severed, and at what the time the treatment started, the sooner the better. As I already said, it is important to talk about eating disorders since these ones can affect us and can kill someone who is in our family or our friends. So we need to act. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Listen to Mateo Mitian with his talk, How Discipline Has Helped Me to Improve.
How discipline helped me to improve. I, I always think about my goal, which is to be able to improve at my highest level playing basketball and to be able to get the best parts of myself in this sport. How many of you have a goal in any sport? And how many of you are willing to change habits that are not good for that sport? That's a sign of discipline. I have played basketball since I was 11 years old. as one more sport to do exercise and maintain my health. At that time, I also played football, but I left practice at 13, a little before the pandemic. In the pandemic, logically, I stopped to do all kind of sports, and that don't benefit me much in my physical or my health. When activities returned, it was difficult for me because my physical condition has worsened a lot. But I began to find something in the basketball that I fell in love with. I began to watch NBA videos, games, and I began playing to basketball court every day between 1 or 2 hours. That motivated me to improve. I began to play every day during at school breaks until I realized that in addition to improve in basketball technique and also in my physically. In September 2021, I started the gym and that changed my physical condition a lot. In addition, in 2021, I grew 14 centimeters. What I had not realized is that although I had improved strength, height, and speed, I lacked something quite fundamental in basketball, the jump. In 2022, I started jump a lot in the hoop every day at school and at home. In 2021, I couldn't touch the hoop, and in 2022, I can pass the fingers in the hoop. I realized that what I did with the jump was thanks to discipline and practice. Jumping every day if I was tired or if I didn't feel like it. To this day, I keep jumping to continue progressing because one of my current goals is to dunk in the professional hoop next year. I love basketball and I love watching NBA because it motivates me to be better and better in this sport. There's no disciplined person who can tell you that with discipline he never felt any change. It's proven many people who with discipline can achieve the things that one really wants. My basketball coach told me it's very important to be able to set a goal and add a grain of time every day. The final prize is priceless, and it will be the result of your effort and dedication. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Milagros Sigma with her talk, Sentimental Army.
I am going to ask 3 questions, and if something of this has happened to you, can you please just raise your hand? Have you ever lost someone dear? Have you ever felt alone? Have you ever hidden your feelings in order not to worry others? This is what happened to me. When I was 6 years old, my mom passed away. At the time, I didn't understand what was really happening, and then time flew away, and I started seeing the world from another perspective. So, lots of questions and feelings started appearing on my path. Most of my classmates bullied me because I didn't have my mom and with me, and I cried to the point that one day I wanted to commit suicide. If I had to think of a word related to my past, it would probably be overthinking. Because not only people bullied me because I didn't have my mom with me, but also because I had a lot of physical appearance problems and insecurities. Telling my family what happens to me during primary school was hard because they didn't believe me. So I shut down. Also, my father once told me that I had to be thankful for all that I had and stop being sad. But that I also have a roof to stay safe when it's raining, food if I want to eat, or clothes to change when I go out. Please never tell someone something like this because people don't need material or money, just a hug from the person they love. Time went by and the sadness grew bigger and bigger. My father had a lot of problems and all the focus was on his So, but it wasn't like that. Instead of expressing myself, I had my problems and I stopped expressing myself and I prefer to focus on the happiness of them taking the role of my mom or the person they want. Um, I suffer in silence, and until now, I continue dealing with the same sadness. I hide my problems in order not to bother my family, and that is something I'm not proud of. But imagine a 9-year-old little girl who believes that she's a burden for everyone and that nobody wants her to be alive. All I wanted was a hug and someone to tell me everything was going to be okay without knowing and mattering that it was fake. Every little step back made me feel I was nobody and that I didn't deserve to be happy ever in my life. Nobody apart from me knows how I felt because I wouldn't be open to about how I was feeling. At the time when I slowly felt able to talk about her, everyone remained quiet, act like they didn't care, or either they seemed to be uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I was growing up and talk about my mom. Every person told me the same. One day we are all going to die. And I was like, okay, it doesn't matter to me it doesn't matter to me. People always mean that with money everything is right. And then it also was the ones that think the angel of the dead person is seeing you. All that comments for me were stupid. I can hug the earth. And what I always say is that to be happy I need a hug, but not for anyone, but yes for her. I asked my father how he saw I was before, during, and after the death of my mom. And he told me that before I was extremely happy, extrovert, always with a smile on my face, restless, funny, and playful. During the process, he told me that for me, time never flew away, and I continued being as happy as ever. But now he told me that he saw me a little bit sad, but with the help of my new psychologist, I could be better. With this, what I want people to understand is that not everyone shows their true colors and how they really are. So I want people to put on those heavy boots the person has and help him or her because not all we see is right. As Grandma says, don't judge a book by its cover. You really don't know how the others feel, so try to ask and make them conscious about the situation, that they are not alone. Give them confidence and stay forever when they will help you. Talking about my mom makes me strong, but at the same time weak. But I do it anyway because I know other young kids such as me are going throughout the same situation. And with my experience, I want to transmit to the world how difficult it is to face the consequences of losing someone you love and how to help people like me. I don't want kids to feel the same way I did years before, with the fear of not being able to get up or fall into a black hole with no returning back. It's all related to communication. In general, if people do not communicate, we all know that's gonna end well. Spread love. We all need love. For love, we don't need to spend money. With hugs, kisses, letters, listening to music, listening to the other, going out for fresh air, letting the other know you are there. That's the thing that counts. Not the one that is only interested when he or she wants to be. Not giving, but then wanting to receive. Spend time with others. Memories are the most precious gift we all can have from someone or somewhere.
Now Francisco Calceta expressed himself with his talk, Our Chip.
Take a minute to imagine a world in which everyone receives the same opportunities and has the same privileges, where we aren't defined by our socioeconomic status, our abilities, our roots, or our money. Sadly, we live in a society where depending on where you're from and the money you have define your quality of life. Over the past few years, I've realized of how lucky I am for having the advantage of a high quality education, my family support, and a great medical care. For my own part, when I was in kindergarten, so from 5 to 6 years old, I spent a lot of time in doctor's appointments and doing different kind of tests and studies. After a while, my neurologist determined that I would have to do an intelligence quotient test because my parents realized my performance in preschool was different from my peers. After the test determined that I had a higher IQ than average, a psychologist advised my parents to hire a professional who would spend my preschool days with me and would give me extra schoolwork. In addition, the school was also informed about the situation so they could help me. What no one was expecting was that the psychologist also realized I was being affected with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, specifically the combined presentation. For those of you who don't know, this brain disorder, according to our secondary school psychologist, is a brain disorder that affects conductual aspects of the individual. According to the American Psychiatric Association, symptoms it displays are constant fidgeting, attentive issues, and impatience. In my daily routine, I recognize that ADHD affects me truly. To give you an idea, when I start reading a book, I may read it with my eyes but not with my brain. Let me be clear. My eyes pretend to read, but my brain is thinking about anything else rather than the content itself. So it doesn't process the information. Anyway, it is important to know that alterations like ADHD can display differently on each individual, and this is why my experience may differ from another person who suffers from the same. As reported by Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a person with this disorder can have trouble paying attention for an extended period of time, which is why they may have a hard time at school. They also have weak organization skills and may constantly lose items and belongings. Speaking personally, I find it heartbreaking that not everyone can have the same opportunities and can access a medical care that supports their condition. For instance, I could cope with my disorder by attending a Montessori school since I was 3 years old. But some people do not have the money to pay for these institutions, or there aren't any in their country yet. What helped me personally was that I didn't have to sit through a 2-hour long class, and I could choose what contents to learn from and when. While the majority of the symptoms of ADHD still play a part of my life, I am proud to say that my academical performance is as good as my peers because I could adapt to the system. However, in the educational area, there are various stigmas and stereotypes about this disorder. For example, that people who have it are lazy because they can't pay attention for a long amount of time, or that they're annoying when they can't sit still for a long time. Some people even say that this disorder isn't real and that it's an invention of young people. I came to the conclusion that it is constantly stigmatized, invisibilized, mistreated by society. Therefore, I think we really need to rethink our perspectives. Thank you.
Listen to Clara Martinez with her song, I Know That I'm Enough. Who has not felt ashamed of your lack of ability for some activities? How many times have you used phrases like, sorry, this is not my thing? Have you ever wished you had the same ability for a sport as a friend of yours, or envied your classmates' ability to solve mathematical problems?
Well, if like me, you share the same feelings, you must know you're not alone. That absolutely all of us have felt this way at least 100 times in life. But not because of this, we are less intelligent or capable than our skilled friends. During my first year of school, in a natural science class, I was raising my hand. The teacher had asked a question, and I don't know how I knew the answer. I raised my hand and looked intensely at the teacher, but still, she turned to my classmate and said, "Let's see. You're so smart that you must know the answer better than I do." I couldn't believe it. Why would he know the answer better than me? Was it really necessary to tell me that he was so smart? Wasn't I smart too? You're probably wondering, and why would that be such a big deal? Me, an 11-year-old girl, felt totally displaced by this boy, always so smart and hardworking, who always stand out with his correct answers in class. But I never thought a teacher would be so clear about it. Apparently, he was more qualified to answer the question than I was. But was he really smarter than me? As a part of this society, we are led to believe that the only intelligences that are worthwhile are those who facilitate careers such as engineering, medicine, economics, among other careers. My father, for example, has always made the joke about, "You better marry a doctor and not bring me a long-haired hippie who makes music and weird stuff." But what would be our world without our beloved artists and musicians? The logical mathematical intelligence, as we suppose, is the most popular one. We can see this intelligence being applied in work related with exact science through abstract and scientific thinking abilities. But what other types of intelligence are out there? For example, without the phenomenal linguistic verbal intelligence, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the work of Shakespeare or Jane Austen nowadays. They needed the ability of using words effectively in order to make themselves part of the history. On the other hand, we can thank visual spatial intelligence for our ability to think in three dimensions and create images. Are pilots, Formula One drivers, and architects not as capable as lawyers or doctors? Because of musical intelligence, we can create diverse types of music. Soda Stereo, Guns N' Roses, Pink Floyd, Genesis, or even One Direction. They all knew how to develop their sensibility to music in order to create our lives more bearable. Kinesthetic intelligence is the ability to use our nervous system in order to achieve perfection in physical performances. We are not only talking about dancers and athletes, we are also talking about surgeons and artists. And finally, intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence. Intrapersonal intelligence is the ability of a person to analyze the reason of their thoughts and attitudes, and being able to correct behaviors that do not suit them. Psychologists, policemen, philosophers, and among others are the professionals who usually develop this ability. While, on the other hand, interpersonal intelligence comprises the understanding others, based on empathy and harmony with the environment. With so many diverse intelligence on so many people in the world, these differences complement each other. I hope that with this talk, I made a difference in your lives. I don't want anyone to feel ashamed of their doubts, their insecurities, and their shortcomings. I wish I had made you all know that we are all enough. Thank you.
Now Sol can ask her to express herself with her thought. We grow to be an advocate. ever heard about landfill emotions? Have you ever felt a landfill emotion? Although they might be a new term to most of us, they are everywhere, every day since the day we are born. Landfill emotions are emotions or even opinions that we're not born with, but rather develop as we grow up. As its name indicates, it's a landfill. It's not organic. It was dumped on you by someone else. We all have experienced these types of emotions, myself included. When I entered primary school, I had a rough time adapting to the environment. The kids commented on my appearance and, my personality. And no matter what anyone said to me, those mean comments stuck with me for years and years. Insecurities don't develop by themselves. They need a trigger, and sometimes someone else's turns out to be one. It's a common experience, no matter if it affected you deeply or not. Have you ever felt ashamed? Have you ever felt insecure? The evidence that others have influence on our self-image is in each of us. And that's only the beginning. Comments do not only affect us when they're explicit in meaning, but also when they're dressed up as harmless. Ads have perpetuated ideas and stereotypes of what humans should Arts have perpetuated ideas and stereotypes of what humans should look like and be like. Arts that promote beauty products or insecurities and low self-esteem. But what about the science behind landfill emotions? Apart from the research I have done on them, I asked a psychologist a few questions on the topic. The first question I asked was, since when are humans conscious about their self-image? And the professional answered, it's human nature because one exists from another's point of view, evaluating ourselves based on how others perceive us. But that comparison can be negatively altered by low self-esteem. So it's normal to compare ourselves to others, but the problem is when that comparison is always negative. The second question was, how dangerous can a comment on someone's appearance be? And the professional answered, very dangerous and risky. For it can be a trigger for a question they can ask themselves, but for others it can be destructive. So when we say these comments, we have to be careful to who are we saying to who we're asking the question to or saying the comment to, and how we say it. We have to be sure that it is constructive criticism. The next question. The third question was, how important are the ads we consume to our self-image? And the professional answered, there are stimulants that can favor someone or not, depending on the perception of the individual. They have perpetuated stereotypes that are harmful, especially for the younger audience. So ads are not inherently evil, but they can affect someone because of their content or the person's state of mind. The fourth and last question was, do you think there is a direct relationship between low self-esteem and advertising in today's society? No, it collaborates with, and the professional answer. No, it collaborates with one low self-esteem. It can make it worse, but still there can be many factors involved. So again, ads are not inherently evil, but they can collaborate with low self-esteem to make someone's problems already worse. Humans, especially children, are sensitive to comments and actions inflicted on them. Little kids' brains are like sponges. They will absorb and internalize anything that you pour on them. Psychology has proven this fact time and time again, and also that the root of insecurities lies in the home of the child.
That is why some things seem to be so hard to get out of our heads, because we learn them at the same time that we learn how to walk, how to read, or how to ride a bike. Insecurities have crept up within actions that we now understand as basics. And it doesn't end there. This is not only a change in how we view ourselves, but also on how we act. From what we all have learned in these few minutes, we know that we are all prone to this, from the oldest one in the room to the youngest one in the room. And that this problem has come down from generation to generation. And so it's our turn to break the cycle. I've learned that it is not only about working on yourself, journaling, working out, and being patient with yourself. It is also about what we give to those around us. We're not fully comfortable with ourselves if we still project these nonsense stereotypes or comments to others. Apart from gaining back the control of how we think and look at ourselves, doing the internal work, we have to share it. We have to be mindful of what we say to others and how we treat others. To our little sister or brother, to our little cousin, to a friend, to anyone. It's a work inside out.
Listen to Clara Gasparini with her talk. Little memories make big memories. Little moments make big.
Months ago, I went to visit my grandmother at her house. I was with my mom, checking in her old clothes if we have something I could wear for a party. I was checking in her old wardrobe when I found 8 shoe boxes in one of the doll's doors. That they caught my attention, so I asked my mother what they were about. She told me they contain all her memories of her life before having children. Immediately after that, with my sister and my mother, we started checking on the objects in all of the boxes. My mother started telling us a lot of stories behind those objects. With most of them, she remembered exactly what were they about. And there was when I wondered why her memory box was so unmeaningful for me, but for her, instead, it has a lot of nostalgic feelings. Now I wanted to show you mine. I started saving nice pieces of moments when I was having fun, or maybe with people I enjoy spending time with. After my experience with my mother, I realized that I arrived to the conclusion that souvenirs are only important for the person who owns them. Because, for example, if I show you this ticket, you will think I'm a garbage collector, but that's not so. These tickets remind me of once I went to the circus with some of my great friends, and we had a really good time. All these souvenirs here in this box have a story behind them. But for you, maybe they are unmeaningful. According to the Royal Dictionary, the definition of souvenir is an object that is given with the purpose of reminding you of a specific place or moment. That's why in birthday parties, baptisms, weddings, when the celebration finishes, you are given a souvenir. So then, when time passes, you go back to that object and you will remember exactly what you did in that event. A study made by the BBC affirms that the emotions and the feelings and the memories are connected. This is because the hippocampus that is the responsible of facilitating memories and the amygdala that is responsible for managing and regulating emotions are together. One works as an executive part and the other as a filter. Therefore, we store them according to our emotional charge. That was when I realized that we all have different memories of the same event. Because, for example, I would not go on holidays to the same places that her, or maybe I would not have fun the same way that him. So we are not going to remember the same thing. or moment. Or maybe we are, but not the same way, because we all feel different things in different moments. Um, Sometimes we forget about the value of a moment until it's already a memory, and all we want is to go back in time and do it again. In some cases, we want to change that memory we have because we think we did something wrong, but we don't have a time machine to go back in time and try to change what we did wrong. So what we have to do is to try living with it. Although it hurts, it's the solution because we have to enjoy the present. If we screw it up or we think we have done it, all we have to do is to get over it because of two reasons. First, we will gain experience and probably learn something new. And second, you will have a great anecdote to share with friends. Okay, although it's great to have memories, you have to have in mind that being all the time in the past limits you to enjoy the present. But you don't have to take away anyone the possibility of remembering, because trying to forget that moment is not always the solution. The problem won't be solved if you just, instead of facing this, you just avoid it. The fact is that if you elude the problem is still there. You're just pretending to be blind. And memories are part of us, and they shape our personality. So hiding memories is not healthy. So, memories. They are important as our cars be and silly as they would. We should start caring more about them. And to conclude my talk, I invite you to try having your own memory box. Start by saving a nice piece of a moment in a box and let the years pass. Then when you come to that object, you will remember all you did when you were happy or having fun. Thank you.
Next is Diego Isani with his talk, Behind Success.
Playing football is what I like to do the most in life. Last year, I reached the final of the tournament I was playing with my team, and it was a very close match, which ended 1-1, and we went to penalties. In penalties, we ended up losing, having given all our effort, but it wasn't enough. When we went to the locker room, we promised each other that the next time we were going to do better and we were going to beat them. And from there, we began to train harder. Personally, I started going to the gym to improve my physique and to perform better in the pitch. And the day of the rematch came in one of the first days of the next tournament. This match wasn't as important as the previous one, but for us, it had something special. That match, we were much better, and we won 3-1. And with this, we learned to get up after failing and to learn from mistakes. Usually, when we see a successful person, we only think in their money, their fame, and their perfect life. But this is not like this. Those people had to practice and work very hard to get where they are now. As Anders Ericsson said in his book, Big Science, Secrets of the New Science of Exercise, any practice makes perfect. Ericsson was a very important psychologist that studied the importance of effort and sacrifice. He created the famous 10,000 hours rule. According to this rule, practicing that amount of time will make us elite performers of our discipline. But this is not totally like this, because I went to school not only that time, but twice as long, and yet I'm not a world-class student. So it is only the amount of time that we practice that matters. Well, now, in 2013, a psychologist called Angela Lee Duckworth gave a TED talk called The Strongest Predictor of Success. Angela was a math teacher in a public New York school, and she started to wonder why there was such a difference between her best students and her worst students. And she graduated on psychology to do a study on this, and she got to the conclusion that success is not a matter of intelligence or talent, but determination. Um, Another thing that I have read and I found it very interesting was an idea called growth mindset by Carol Dweck of Stanford University. According to Dweck, the ability to learn is not a fixed condition, but something that can be improved and trained. With growth mindset, we could improve people's mentality and determination, and that would be very helpful for them in their life. Um, so we can bring this to sport because there are a lot of elite athletes that arrive there to thanks of their perseverance and determination. And there are a lot of extremely talented players that could achieve great things but didn't get to there because they didn't have the determination that is necessary. To sum up, remember that without effort, you get nowhere. Every dream, every goal that you have to focus and train and work very hard, and you will see the results. And it's not only me who says this, because there are a lot of experts and psychologists who got to this conclusion. Finally, I would like schools to give more relevance to this topic, because I think that it would be great for children to learn how to work for what they want. Thanks for your attention.
Now Francisca Zaradasti expressed herself with her song, The Power of Stones.
I believe we all here have heard at least once about the power of the crystals. Most of the time, people do not believe in crystals' energy. Raise your hands, the ones that believe in crystals' energy. Now raise your hands, the ones that do not believe in crystals' energy. See, same as some of you here, a year and a half ago, it wouldn't even cross my mind that crystal could help me to cope with some situations. Still with that thought, in July 2021, I was at my grandmother's house. I was helping her to organize some stuff because she was moving to another place when I suddenly saw a bowl with crystals. I immediately asked her if I could give them. She accepted right away. But before I do anything else, she told me that I had to clean these crystals. I was a little confused with what she was requesting me to do, so I asked her why. And she explained that the cleaning of the crystals had to be done every so often, but most important when you receive them. In my case, I was receiving them from another owner, let's say. This meant that these crystals had already had a purpose. Their energy had been guided to a specific person. In this case, my grandmother was the owner of the crystals. That's why I had to clean them. That's why I had to clean them so that their energy would be concentrated in me, their new owner. She explained to me that depending on the crystal, I had to clean it with water or with incense, or even with sunlight or full moonlight. So that's what I did. And since then, I'm always carrying crystals with me and looking forward to new uses for them. According to Katrina Rafael, the author of the book La Iluminación por los Cristales, crystals were created when the Earth was formed. They contain the records of how the Earth was created. Some of them are generated in the magma or in burning gases from the inside of the Earth, or even in volcanic lava flows. These ones are formed when the molten rock mass solidifies as it cools and hardens. That's how the atoms mix together to achieve the composition of the crystals. On the other hand, some of them are born in water solutions. They are formed by following a process of chemical or mechanical erosion where the air, water, wind, and ice are the main factors that take part in the dissolution of minerals that end up consolidating and crystallizing. Finally, there are newborn minerals from the recrystallization of existing minerals under pressures and temperatures. These minerals experience structural and chemical changes. These alterations reorganize the atoms, creating new structures. As we have seen, crystals can come from different places, but they are all here in our world to fulfill the same purpose: to absorb and transmit energy effectively, and to clean and transmute unhealthy energies, or as some people say, bad vibes. Humans, as they are in contact with crystals from the earth, can perceive their energy, channel it, and use it for therapeutic activities. That's the answer that I received from this expert on the topic when I asked her how she would describe how this energy could be used. A long time ago, the power of the crystal was manipulated for multiple uses. Some theories assume that crystals were used to channel and apply the cosmic force. All civilizations use crystals as headlights to communicate with their universal ancestors. The power of the crystals was also used for physical applications. Nowadays, quartz crystals are used, for example, for ultrasound apparatus or clocks. These minerals can also be used for meditation and to develop intuition. People are always finding new uses that humans can give to these crystals. Most commonly, I like having them, for example, during an exam or when I visit a place where there's people that I don't know that much, so that their energy is protecting me. I believe that the question or doubt that most people might have is how. How do you get their energy to help you? You have to activate this crystal to be able to receive a response from them, and then visualize them fulfilling this action that you're asking them to do. There are multiple ways of doing this. What I prefer to do and what I learned is to clean my crystal with the incense smoke. This helps to recharge their energy. As I mentioned already, there are multiple ways of recharging them. Secondly, I learned if you take the crystal and place it in your hand, either left or right, and visualize them fulfilling this action that you're asking them to do, the minerals from the crystal communicates with the minerals of our body and receive the information that our mind is sending. In this way, you are activating them. After this process, I take the crystal with me and transit the situation with the crystal's energy by my side. Not all the crystals are supposed to be used in the same situations. They all have a particular characteristic. If you are interested in beginning with the application of crystals in your daily life, these are the two ones that I recommend you to start with, since they are the ones that helped me when I was a beginner. As I mentioned before, the first crystals that I own belong to my grandmother. The crystal that caught my attention right away was an amethyst. That is this one right there, and this is one that I have right here. I'm pretty sure that this is a very popular stone, mostly because of its appearance. But what most people don't know is that this is an extraordinarily powerful and protective stone. It is beneficial for the human mind, relaxing or stimulating. It helps humans to be balanced and focused. I find it useful to take this crystal with me during an exam when I need to concentrate. So if there's people here that get distracted easily, I 100% recommend to take an amethyst with you everywhere. Another crystal that I love is rose quartz. That is this one right there, and it's this tiny one that I have right here. I find this crystal so unique because it's a stone of unconditional love. It shows the true essence of love. It calms, gives peace of mind, and is fantastic for uses in cases of trauma or crisis. Rose quartz gently takes off negative energies and replaces it with loving vibrations. This crystal can teach us to love ourselves. That's why I feel so comfortable with it. As I'm finishing with my talk, I would like for everyone to start getting different crystals, depending on what your needs are. And you'll see how helpful the energy can be. Thank you so much for your attention.
Ya llegamos a la mitad del encuentro. Les damos un descanso de 10 minutos para estirar las piernas o ir al baño, para poder servirse una bebida en la mesa de café. Todavía quedan 17 oradores más. Esperamos que estén disfrutando el evento. Vamos a estar continuando con el segundo bloque de charlas, así que los invitamos a volver. Hola, les pedimos a todos, por favor, tomar asiento y hacer silencio, así podemos seguir con el segundo bloque de charla. Gracias.
always assist to a traditional school. The methodology of this school was sitting in a desk and copying what the teacher says or wrote. This was one of the problems that I have to pass through for too many years in that institution. But why was this a problem? I didn't like it at all. It was so boring that I was not bearable experience. Teachers were asked to be after you to see if you were copying or writing correctly. They did not use motivating materials or student methods to learn easier and funnier. So I was distracted all days, getting distracted because I was not enjoyable for me to learn or study that way. Due to this fact, the teacher will tell me of all the times. I feel very anxious and miserable. When I grew up, I started to think about how to put an end to this misery. One day I was going out of school and a mother was talking about her son and how different his experience at school was. He assists to a Montessori school and I asked myself if this school can change my student's life. Perhaps a different experience and a method of studying like the Montessori method would change my life. So I started investigating and asking about it. And I had the chance to talk with my best friend, Mother Julia, and she said that adolescents can self-manage their time. Finally, I talked to my father about it and we discussed it and to change school. During my first period at the new school, I could, I couldn't experience much because we were at lockdown and the classes were virtual. But when the pandemic restrictions were less and school started face to face, all the commitment that I have received about the school became true. At Montessori School, I have acquired self-managed skills, self-esteem, and I have learned how to work in a group. This makes me feel very happy and more comfortable in class. I can also manage my time in a better way. I'm not stressed by working overload and the amount of time I spend at school. If I work in class, I don't have to do homework. That is another difference at the traditional school. If you work in class, you still have to do work. Maria Montessori said, the adolescent must never be treated as child, for this is a stage of life that he has to supervise. It is a better to treat adolescents as if he had greater value than he actually shows. That is, if he has less and let him feel that his merit and self-respect and disregarded. In this short paragraph, she described how adolescents were or are treated as a child. This is how I felt in a traditional school. That is the difference between these two schools. Montessori has a way of working that adolescents like and can easily adapt. I think that it is a modern way of working. It is more bearable and reachable. What I want to advise you today is that if you are going to change school, think about it very well. Because changing school is not an easy decision. Think that your decision can change a lot of aspects in your life. You could accept it or regret it.
It is Valentina Oluet's turn to present her talk. To what extent is happiness a choice?
Have you ever felt? No. Ralph Marston once said, happiness is a choice, not a result. Nothing will make you happy until you choose to be happy. Have you ever felt like there are some days in which everything is just bad? Like there's just nothing to be happy about? Well, I used to feel that way until one day my health and adolescence teacher from my last school told the class a phrase that made me realize that maybe, and only maybe, I was wrong. Be happy always, she said. At first, what I thought was, oh God, the woman must be crazy if she believes that it is possible to be happy all the time. That night, I went to bed and tried to remember a day in which I wasn't happy at all, so the next time I had classes with her, I could prove my teacher wrong. My mind went back to a specific day in summer in which I had a terrible fight with my mom. She was really angry at me, and since my dad always seems to be on her side, he was mad at me too. I realized that maybe the best thing to do at that moment was to go to sleep and get some rest, just not to blow my mind with all the negative things that were happening around me. But 2 hours passed, and I was still lying on bed looking on the roof, and I couldn't sleep. I decided that maybe the right thing to do was to grab my phone, watch the movie, maybe like that somehow I would feel sleepy. But before I could even open Netflix in my cell phone, I got a notification from a text message sent by a boyfriend I had at that time. It was a really simple and short text, something like, "Hey, what's up? How's your day?" So I automatically smiled at the screen. I replied to him and I told him about my day, then he told me about his. We continued talking after that about all the random things that teenagers like to talk about when they are 14 years old. He phone called me after that and the conversation continued. We listened to music, we played video games online, we watched a movie, we gossiped a lot, and when I finally hung the phone, it was 6 in the morning already. I went to sleep with a huge smile on my face. Something as simple as a phone call with someone I loved made me forget about all of the bad events of the day. After reminding that, I realized that maybe that's what my teacher was trying to tell us. That happiness can be about moments, people, simple dumb things that can just make your day. It is possible to be happy every day if we let all of these little things make our day better. Now, if you go to the center of your city and you just stand in the middle of the street, what you will see is a bunch of people who seem to be in a hurry or running out of time to get somewhere. Perhaps they will have their phones in their hands and they will probably be using them. They won't notice you standing there, and even if they do, they will forget about it as soon as they get to the next street. Now, some of you might feel identified with these people, and I do not blame you. I even do feel identified myself. We live our lives going from one place to another, running from here to there, but never really reaching the destination. We say that we are searching for our happiness so bad, but what we don't see is that happiness is right there in front of our eyes. People should stop and smell the roses more often. And by roses, I don't mean the literal flowers or nature. But what I am trying to say is nothing but an encouragement to live life with a deeper gratitude for all of the people and events of our life. It is a reminder to slow down and take notice of everybody who is around us that brings joy in our lives. And remind us that it is important to be present every day. Just like Mike Davis wisely wrote in his song, there's a lot more to life than work and worry. The sweetest things in life are right there in front of our eyes and completely free. But now that we are talking about it, I feel that I'm in the position to ask, what is happiness? And what does it really mean to be happy? Well, according to neuroscientist Dan Burnett, author of the book Happy Brain, Where Happiness Comes From and Why, happiness is a reward pathway deep in the middle of the brain. Basically, it is about our brain telling us that something has gone right or we've done something which is beneficial to us. So, in conclusion, happiness is nothing but a reward. But how can we reach that benefit of feeling happy? Well, it has been said by Socrates that the secret of happiness is not in the seeking for more, but in learning the capacity on how to enjoy the less. We focus on the specks on the wall of our lives, what we don't have or what we want more of. If we just keep on living like this, we will never ever be able to reach the benefit of being happy. When I began to notice how much and how often I tended to focus on all the vast aspects of my life, I developed a daily habit of gratitude. So I created a journal in which I had to write down every day at least one thing that I was grateful for. Now, these things weren't necessarily big ones or like huge. Most of them were actually pretty dumb and small, such as like, a little chocolate or something, but they made me happy at some point, so that makes them enough. Learning how to appreciate the little things can be hard sometimes, but they are there, and they are something that I promise you are something worth appreciating. And I don't want to go to the dark side of the coin here, but there are so many people out there going through so much. People who are dying, little kids fighting against illnesses that they don't even understand, adults and teenagers saying goodbye to their loved ones. And we are all still here, breathing after all. I would like every single one of you to remember that when life seems to turn its back to you and fight all of these bad feelings with nice memories and what people can say that can make us feel a little better. After all, this is the beauty of life. Thank you so much.
Listen to Juanita Perez with her talk. We all grieve differently. 1 year ago, my brother suffered the death of one of his best friends who was only 9 years old in a terrible accident. When my brother received the news, the first thing he did was run to his room and cry. The first days were very difficult. He related everything he did to everything that had happened. Sometimes he would draw himself with his friends, and on top of it, he would write things like warning his friend what was going to happen to him. Some nights he asked questions such as, "Mom, how did you find out about his death?" or "How was the accident?" This question made him feel good because he needed to know and be clear about what had happened. Since that moment, my brother started going through grief. What is grief? Grief means emotional response of a person to the experience of a loss. Grief is not only caused by the death of someone, but also when we lost our job or a dream that we could not fulfill. Overcoming grief is not something that happens from one day to another. It is something that can take days, weeks, months, or even years, or sometimes you can't get over it. I had the opportunity to talk to a psychologist and have her tell me a little about grief, and that helped me a lot to understand that grief is not something negative, it is something positive and good for our health. Grief is something that we all need to go through when we lost something or someone, because it is what makes us able to continue with our lives. I say this because many times it happens that, for example, you go to a funeral close of someone close to you, and they see you crying, and someone approaches you and say with good intention, "Don't cry," and that is not right because your way of expressing yourself and starting to move is crying. Each person has different tools and resources to go through this moment. To conclude, grief is something we all go through in different ways, and there are many ways to go through grief, not only for death. So when you start grieving, it is a good idea to ask for help and express what you are feeling, so it helps you to cope. It could be a psychologist or a friend that you really trust. I hope that what I have told you will help you. Thank you so much. Let's listen to Sarah Gomez with her talk, Reading Through the Looking Glass.
When I was younger, my mom used to tell us stories at bedtime. Sometimes she read for us. On other occasions, she played a CD from which a woman narrator's voice came out. The next morning, I talked with my sister about what we had heard. As I grew up, I didn't depend so much to get to know new stories. I could grab a book and create a tale by only looking at the images. About childhood and reading, Proust, a French novelist, author of the novel In Search of Lost Time, writes in the preface on reading. If we still happen today to live through those books of another time, it is for no other reason that they are the only calendars we have kept of days that have vanished, and we hope to see reflected on their pages the dwellings and the ponds which no longer exist. He narrates with a poetic style those moments in which reading started to be an important part of his life. When I read it, I felt immediately related. I remembered reading Naricita by Monteiro Lobato sitting on top of a sabos branch at my grandma's house, or Alice Through the Looking Glass next to the sun in winter, and at the edge of the pool in summer, 1001 Nights. So what does reading mean to me? Why was it important in my childhood? Reading means the possibility to create magical worlds. It gives us the chance to increase our imagination through our thinking development. It opens doors to new scenarios, conflicts, times, cultures, different points of view, lives that are not ours. Borges, in his personal library collections prologue says, "A book is a thing between things till he meets with its reader." These quotes means that there are books that are meant for us, and it's fundamental to read for pleasure and not for obligation. Reading can be a personal trip or shared. Reading to others and that others read for us recreates and strengthens the bond with the outside world. Maria Eris, actress and narrator, founded Argentina Narrada, a project that wants to spread the habit of reading through social narration. This project focuses on reading to others out loud in order to foment the desire for reading. Maria describes how sharing readings allows us to strengthen the bond, discovering aspects from the inside of the other that we didn't know, in a familiar environment. Reading in social environments to people we don't know, for example, jail, hospitals, schools, among other institutions, allows the creation of bonds, but with new people this time. On the other, in some way, we're all social storytellers capable of creating stages and magical worlds. It is possible that the action of reading to others awakens desire to read. In this point, Maria says, "Who reads when we share a reading? The one who listens, the reader, or both?" Maria adds that reading awakens the voice. That is to say that this means that when we share reading with a book with a person, we are creating moments, circumstances, and memories. By this means, reading is active memory. That is to say that it creates and recreates lived experiences. She also comments that reading should be the human possibility of inclusion taking into account the other. And she adds, "If we all read to each other and books were an everyday occurrence and a life habit, possibly society would start to be told from a different place." If we think about the world from the place Maria suggests, who has the role to promote reading? Parents, school, the state? In an ideal situation, parents should be the ones who have the power of transmitting the desire for reading. But the state has the obligation through institutions to inculcate this habit. Sometimes governments do not take this into account, which leaves many people out of the system without literacy. This action from our representatives is tremendously unfair, even more so in the world we live in which reading is part of our everyday landscape, from labels to magazines, newspapers, messages, and so on. Both reading and writing are the key to knowledge, so people who don't have access to lecture have less possibilities in life. At this instance, in order to have a different point of view, I talked with Cecilia Sorrentino, writer and philosopher. She told me her grandmother Andaluza was illiterate. She was too ashamed to tell people about this, so she invented strategies in order to hide it. She shared oral tales with her granddaughter, Cecilia. Her story reminds that the world has more time without writing than with it. The first texts were created in order to be read out loud to others. Cecilia says, "We need to protect that original treasure, oral tales. In the end, the life we have lived is a narrated one." What entity does reading have today in a technological world in which, with less time to sit down and enjoy a book? How do children travel through their childhood when the access to a screen is faster than the search for a book? Cecilia is a teacher at the creative writing career. She coordinates reading workshops, so I asked her what she thought about the possible competition between technology and reading. She says that technology is an instant communication that impoverishes language. Those who conserve the power of reading are possessors of a treasure. As a conclusion, I believe that we are all responsible and should be aware that reading connects us with the most intimate and true thing we have as a human. If we are aware that the access to reading and writing implies expanding our consciousness, then we have the beautiful possibility of improving the world we live in. Having a book as a company, it will keep you from feeling alone. So don't feel ashamed of reading what you enjoy. A book has many doors from which you can enter into the reading world. Search and choose the one that is meant for you. Thank you.
speaker is Josefina Borrón with her talk, A Life with Crystal.
Crystals have changed my life in all aspects, but why do they work for me? A big part of this answer is because I believe in their power. I believe so much in my crystals, and I know that they appreciate my love for them. My, crys- my, first, my first crystal was an amethyst, and I know that my first crystal was an amethyst that was a present to my mom from my aunt. So the crystal passed to my mom, or no, the crystal passed from my aunt to my mom and then to me. So that small amethyst was very special to me. On another occasion, I bought a parrot whose power is to attract money. The day after I cleaned the pyrite, my mom gave me some money out of the blue. And the following week, my dad and my grandmother gave me more money. That and a lot of other experiences in my life with crystals made me believe in them. This was too much coincidence to me, so I went to an interview with Laura Noisho. Laura Noisho owns a store in which she offers different courses on the power of tongues. That's why I contact her to get my doubt out. For example, why did this amethyst end up in my hands? She told me that the crystal was meant to end up in my hands until it finished our relationship. The same could be as it disappears or lost it. If I do not connect with the crystal, I'd have to leave it in its place of origin, the earth. She also taught me about altars. They consist of a small table where you can make your prayers or manifestations. On an altar, you must find the four elements of nature: water, fire, earth, and air. Another thing you have to know about crystals is that they need cleaning. When people ask me what they need to do to clean their crystals, I answer that there are lots of ways to do it. When I buy a new crystal, I wait until the following full moon because it represents an important moment about new beginnings that can work with a special energy in, that help you to drive the purpose and desires. The most important thing that I have to do is to bury my crystals in a flower pot with soil to charge their energy. That's for the sun to be able to protect me from bad energies. They also need to be charged with air. You will need to put them outside on a windy day or smoke them with incense. With ground soil, as I said before, burying them. With fire, putting them over a candle fire, but you can do this with all the crystals. You also can smoke them or leave them in the sun all day. Finally, with water. It is important to be careful when you clean them with these elements because water can damage some crystals. Take them to the sea or the beach and give them a salty water bath. Or leave them outside in water all night. Finding the right way to clean your crystals can help you to find a stronger energetic connection with them. When I say connection, it means that you treat them with constant cleaning and that you have a daily interaction, or that you say an affirmation out loud. If you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, just tell the thoughts you, to yourself in your mind. I am open to work with the crystal that I call to heal to create a new harmony between my needs and myself. This affirmation and more things can make the results comfortable with you and your energies and gives you a connection with your crystals. Some people think that crystals are just pieces of stone and that they don't have any power within them. If you don't believe in the power of crystals, they will not have any effects in your life. This information I just shared came from a very long trip in which I had to write 4 years of experiences and hard work inspired by the data maxis. I brought it today to show you the inspiration that this little crystal emanated in me. I hope that these precious amethysts will always accompany me and my other crystals, and I hope that they will accompany me forever. Thank you for that.
Listen to Joaquin Pares with his talk, Why Are Sports Important to Adolescents?
We have all lived very difficult time between 2020 and 2022. We have all suffered it in a different way. Personally, I suffer a lot what refers to sports. All my life I had played sports, and due to the quarantine it was all called out. All that free time that I had, I didn't know how to spend it. One day in August 2020, the club I play football for started with virtual trainings. I was so happy at the moment because thanks to that, I was going to start doing sports again. On my first day, I did not understand what we were doing because it was all about physical training with weights. I had never done that. It was very difficult at first, but eventually I began to like it a lot. I started to feel passionate about always want to improve in this exercise. It was very strange for me because at first I refused to do it, and then I even gave my younger siblings mini classes of physical activities. At present, thanks to that trainer who showed me what physical training with weights are, I started going to the gym and play soccer at the same time. I noticed many benefits like an improvement in activities such as running or jumping. Another thing that I like about this type of activity is that if you have any curiosity, you can investigate and check out yourself. That is what I have been doing since last year. I have found out that throughout the last year, I noticed a big change in my physical and mental state. Because thanks to sports improvements in my mentally, I was able to have higher self-esteem and focus on myself. I have found a space to relax and think. The question at the beginning has a personal answer and a scientific one. I carried out an interview with the pediatrician Claudio Suarez, in which I asked for her general questions on adolescence and sport to help me to understand the topic with fundamentals. As is of public knowledge, sports are based on the discipline. As Claudio said in the interview, sports should be implemented from a young age because it is easier to generate that discipline that we need. Since when we are older, it is more difficult to take up a habit. Uh, One of the principal key points is to let children choose the sports they like and not be guided by what others like. Because the idea of doing sport is also to include young people on a social group that benefits their mental health. Referring to the social part of practicing sports, Claudio mentioned a lot of benefits. In the interview, we talked about how sports helps groups of people, of adolescents at risk, like they are in a bad economic situation or a bad social group. They go out at night, they consume drugs and alcohol in excess. In this case, sports play a fundamental role because if they want to go far with the sports and achieve the dream, they have to take care of themselves and put aside all those bad acts to take care of their health to be able to achieve it. Another point of this benefit for future, Claudia says to me that sport during adolescence are fundamental to create a better development in all body systems. And thanks to this, you generate future benefits because you reinforce your immune system and you save yourself from heart disease. Or if we reinforce our muscle system, in the future you avoid joint problems. And last but not least, sport helps adolescents to have better communication skills because you have to deal with a lot of people when you play sports. It is clear that in the period of adolescence, sports is a fundamental point. Physical activity provides a lot of benefits and improves your health. All adolescents have to play sports for all aspects that I mentioned. Thank you to listen and remember that we all have to play sports.
Our next speaker is Lucia Bolognesi with her talk. Why should we pay more attention to mental health?
Okay. I would like to try again with you. Think of a fruit, any, but without saying it out loud. Sorry. Ready? Well, raise your hand, those who thought of an apple. Now, those who thought of an orange. And finally, those who thought of a banana. 77% of people think of these three fruits. Do you remember the taste of that fruit and the shape? That memory is in our head. If someone opens our head, they will not find the physical fruit because it's in our mind. So, for example, cardiologists works with hearts, veterinarians with animals, but psychologists works with those memories that are not physically there. Like doctors and surgeons, psychologists play a major role in society as it is important not to only have a good physical health, but also a good mental health. Does anyone know what mental health is? I know that for some people that are present today, mental health is something new and a little known. I was one of those too. But exactly 1 year ago, I experienced something, which I am not here to talk about today, that changed my point of seeing things. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which each individual develops their potential, can cope with the stresses of life, can work productively, and can contribute something to their community. So it could be said that mental health and physical health go hand by hand, because without body, there's no mind, and without mind, there's no body. I want to show you Matthias. Well, you have imagine that there's a boy who has a good physical condition, he's a beautiful boy, and you can easily assume that he has a good diet. But Matthias is constantly compared to his brothers. His parents say that he is less intelligent and useless. Also, Matthias suffers from bulimia and inflicts self-harm. Is that healthy for you? No, it's clearly not. So why should mental health matter? Mental health has a direct impact on our way of thinking, feeling, and acting. Our brain determines how we respond to stress, how we relate to other people, and how we make decisions. For this reason, it's important to emphasize that mental health is just as important as physical health. Having a good mental health does not mean being happy all the day and not being able to be sad. Bad and good things are part of life, and no one will be able to escape from pain and suffering. But it's important not to stay in that place, and learning to live with pain is a paved road with many ups and downs. The goal of mental health is to get the person to handle emotional, social implications in a positive way and improve their quality of life. Given my life experience in which I have worked and I work in my individual sessions, it's viable to give a definition of what projection means to be able to give away the talk about the experience of my life.
Freud defines the projection as the defense mechanisms in which impulses, feelings, and unknown desires are attributed to another option. It can be a person, or an external thing. An easy example to understand the projection is a movie screen. When an image is projected on the canvas, it's the same as what people do on others. Or we also project something that we don't like or we don't tolerate about ourselves. For example, if you feel dumber or less able to do things than others, then our defense mechanism is to say that others are inept or incapacitated. So before saying something, we have to think about it. Why I want to tell this person something? I am trying to tell them something that I am projecting from my own emotions. In addition to individual therapy, I also did family therapy. Family therapy helps family members improve communication and resolve conflicts. From my experience in family therapy, improved communication with my family, the way we treat each other and say things to each other. Going to family, couple, or also individual therapy is not a bad thing. It is to prevent something bad from happening. Also, going to the psychologist is not something that we have to feel ashamed of, and saying that the psychologist is for crazy people is something that remains in the last century. To end this talk, I want to propose you an activity. For a week, you are only going to say positive things. Sometimes when we say, I can do this, at the end, we are not going to be able to do it. So, well, that's the point of the activity. Thank you very much for your attention and your time.
He is Juan Papaleo with his talk. Why should you read fantasy books?
Fantasy has always been one of the biggest literary genres ever since its conception, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, as the genre is becoming more relevant by the day, not only in the reading community, but also in other mediums of entertainment, such as movies, video games, shows, etc. With this in mind, should we read fantasy books, and why? Well, in my experience, reading fiction literature has been a fantastic way of traveling to other worlds and exploring some very interesting ideas without having to actually travel the world. My first experience with fiction literature that I can remember was reading The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry when I was 6 or 7 years old. Of course, I liked the story, but I couldn't fully understand the meaning of it. However, some years later, when I was around 10 or 11, I read it again, and to my surprise, I found it to be quite different from what I had originally remembered. Eh, And it also happened several times throughout my childhood that every time I read The Little Prince, I found a whole new meaning to it. Eventually, now older, I got to read Dune, and in it I found a rich world with layered characters and several opposing factions, as well as some interesting discussions on philosophy and religion, and a big deal of social commentary. Since having read Dune, I now see people, or rather complex organizations, in a different light. Both of these experiences have changed the way I see the world, and they are both an essential part of my overall experience reading fiction literature. However, it turns out that fiction literature can do more than just change your worldview. In fact, according to a study from the NCBI, reading in general decreases your chances of getting dementia in the future. And another study by the BBC found that not only does reading fiction increase our empathy levels and improve our social cognition, but it also showed that people that read fiction tend to score higher in a test called Mind in the Eyes, in which the contestants are supposed to determine someone's emotions by watching somebody else's eyes and the surrounding skin alone. This study also found that people's empathy levels scored higher even a week after the experiments had been conducted, linking to possible long-term benefits of reading fiction. And it has been proven that reading fiction improves a skill called theory of mind, which is related to how we perceive others and their thoughts.
as well as reducing racial bias, which means that people that read fiction are able to find more similarities between different groups of people than those who do not read fiction. Lastly, the National Library of Medicine has found that reading fiction improves theory of mind further than any other works of art, including other works of literature. And that's it. And to answer the questions posed before, my experience reading fiction has been marvelous, not only because it's taught me a lot about who I am and how I see the world, but, but because it has also shown me some of the most wonderful and compelling stories I have ever seen. In conclusion, you should read fantasy books not only because it can improve our social, cognitive, and empathetic abilities, but because it can also show us some of the most interesting stories out there and help us discover who we are in the process. As Emily Dickinson has once said, to travel far, there is no better ship than a book. Thank you for coming.
We will listen to Mateo Montes now with his talk, How I Became Passionate.
I am a crazy fan of Boca Juniors football team. There are a lot of reasons why I am a Boca fan. As I dear members of my family are, for some wonderful moments I live connected to Boca. But there is one specific moment that made me that passionate Boca fan that I am. The moment that made me the person who I am in this aspect is the return of Carlos Tevez to Boca in 2015. But do you know who Carlos Tevez is? He's an Argentinian football player that started his career in Boca Juniors and made his debut in 2001 against Talleres. He rapidly became one of the best players in the Argentinian Championship and in South America. He won the Copa Libertadores and the Intercontinental Cup against Milan. Then he moved to Brazil to play for Corinthians and then in Europe. In Europe, he became one of the best players in the world and won the UEFA Champions League with Manchester United. He also played 2 World Cups. Then, in 2015, after playing the Champions League finals with Juventus and the Copa America final with Argentina, he decided to return to Boca Juniors. This was a surprising decision because he was one of the best players in Europe and earning a lot of money there. But the reason when he returned to Boca Juniors was because of the passion and the love he felt for the club, and that's what he transmitted to me. I think passion is a very special and important feeling in life. It is something that is transmitted in family, but also it could be reflected with people you don't know. When you are passionate about football, you could be walking in the street and meet someone with your favorite team shirt and talk about hours with him or her, although they are perfect strangers. Sharing things you are passionate about with people you don't know is an excellent example of passion. Another thing I love from football is going to the stadium. In the stadium, you can feel all the passion of football. All the fans shouting and singing for the club is an inexplicable sensation. When the match finishes and your team has won, the fans stay there to keep singing and shouting for the players. I think the fans are one of the best aspects in football. Also because many players, coaches and journalists say that fans are the best part of football because they transmit the passion and the feelings. According to philosophers, passion is a feeling or emotion that helps us to improve in many things and encourage us to do new things or things that we like. So to conclude, I think that when I finish school, I will do something related to football. It's very important to follow your passions because if you work on something you are passionate about, you are not going to complain of what you do, and also it will make you happier, which is the most important thing in life.
This is our next speaker. He is Francisco Ita with his talk pollution in River.
Months ago, I went fish in the river, and not only did I think garbage, but I also fished plastic bag and chip trap. I think that the old fisherman fished garbage or pollution matter, and it is unfortunate. It is so that we don't know how to take care of something so beautiful. The river have biodiversity, fauna, and flora, and they take away dogs and deer. For this reason, the water is a symbol of the life. We must take care of them and clean them, but is not easy because the industry and people have been dirtying the river for years, and all the dirty has accumulated, causing many problems to the flora and the fauna of the area in which we are included. Since the contamination of the rivers affect us indirectly, the situation of the river is serious. That part of the first layer have already been contaminated, and it is only a matter of time of the deeper layer where our drinking water reservoirs are to get polluted. There will come a point where we will be drinking on our wasting. Fortunately, the problem worries many authorities. I don't know if they are aware that the problem awareness varies year since the pollution is increasing. Due to industry, field of city wasted, and some agriculture practice along the river basin, waste treatment plants are needed, but many municipalities don't have one, and it is difficult and costly to set up one. Thus, that we have one don't have them working because it is expensive. Where along the basin are poorly function, and and the municipality can't do anything about it because they use it for political bargaining, and if it would do anything about it because sorry, and it would require a lot of money. The river is in critical state. It has inorganic and organic contaminants, and every time that pass it is more difficult to fix it. Nowadays, there is a lot of type of pollution. What is the pollution? The pollution has this question has many answers because there are many of types of pollution. But a correct definition or a possible definition is when elements or substance enter an environment that normally cannot be in there, and that deteriorate the balance of the ecosystem. Something to emphasis is that not only inorganic matter pollutant, inorganic matter pollutant, organic matter contaminate because it is can also imbalance in the environment. This is the case of the river Luján. In the river, there are many organic remains. This comes from the food factories and slaughter houses. We also think have metals that can come from different industries. For example, arsenic, which is considered a natural contaminant. When also find high levels of phosphorus that they are attributed to the usage of fertilizer and detergent and the use of herbicide, for example, the glyphosate. The glyphosate is a fertilizer. The glyphosate and fertilizers in general are high in phosphorus, which is mineral that favor the growth of algae, and consequently the river is covered with algae, uh, algae which prevent the the oxygenation of the water, and this causes the fish to die, generating an imbalance in the environment and damaging its more. This situation usually happens when the fields fertilize the crops with. Uh, so when the fields fertilize the crop with glyphosate and the next like rain, the water that comes into contact with the fertilizer becomes contaminated and ends up in the river. On the other hand, some organisms such as fish can accumulate pollution substance if we eat those fish. They can produce a worse effect than drinking water from the river since the contaminants will be more concentrated. This affects the entire environment, including us. For example, let's of big one is a type of bird that eat one fish per day. It accumulates the pollution that are stored in the fat of the fish. This causes a phenomenon called biomagnification, in which the pig is intoxicated by having a higher concentration of mineral and contaminant in the organisms than those found in the water and even in the fish. The same happens with the human being. In conclusion, the industry turned the river Luján into a problem that harmed the environment and consequently us. The population of Luján is paying the consequence of the industries, companies, fields, and field loss, among others. The only short-term solution requires a gigant investment to start up the treatment plants which filter and purify the water. But science, the health is not the most important thing to authorities and businessmen. All that remains is to fix and take care of the river in the long term. This is not easy science. What must be achieved is to reduce the amount of contaminant that enter in the river. Since clean, it is practically impossible because the pollution is responsible of producers. If we get to reduce the dumping, the river can improve it by self-clean, that is to say by the natural circulation of the water. Don't forget that the river is the most important part of the environment in which your life. For this reason, that's why we have to protect it. Some IIMs you should be conscious about the issues and for you to share this type to friends and family to raise awareness and make a change. Thank you for listening.
It's Francisco Roland's turn to present his talk. How to talk with
July 7, 2020, I call it the worst day of my life. Why, you may ask? This day was the day I lost the person I appreciated the most in the whole world. That was my grandmother. During the beginning of 2020, my grandfather died and my grandmother, after overcoming this cancer, was diagnosed with lung cancer. After all that chaos in my life comes the famous coronavirus that we already know everything it goes. We quarantined with my mom, my sister, and my grandmother. The first day were complicated for us because of everything we faced, the loss of my grandfather, not seeing my father or my family, being locked up every day with the fear of going out and getting infected, putting my grandmother at risk. We also had moments in which we had fun playing board games, watching movies, chatting, among others. Over this, my grandmother not get relatively well until the chemotherapy began. They affected her a lot because they made her stay in bed more, eat a little, feeling bad, her health fell out, among others. She looked listless, but after a few days she improved. At the time, we decided to give her a dog to make her happy because it was her favorite breed. That breed was a Breton Spaniel, and his dog was called Shaggy. But after that, came the last. The last in my recovery. That was the strongest for her because she was already weakened and that affected her a lot. She lost weight, she was very weak, she stayed in bed all the time. For a month, we will carry her suffering. At the time, we decided to give her a dog, or what she is. For a month, we watched her suffering at night, crying with my mom. At one point, they came to pick her up to take her to the clinic because she was very sick. She was there for a day and a night. My dad came for us and told us the worst news of my life. My grandma was dead. At the moment I thought that everything was falling apart. I thought I couldn't be fine without my grandmother. I thought I couldn't continue without her behind me, supporting me in everything and giving me advice like she did. I wasn't doing well at school. I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to do anything at all. Until one day I had to face the situation and accept that she was alone. When I was asked to prepare this act, I had not about that it was about this, but I was not clear on what to focus on. Until I sat down to talk with my teacher, Julia Quevedo, and together we were able to solve my problem and decide to focus on grief. Because I realized that is something very difficult to overcome, and it is something that is not talked about much. People usually keep it to themselves. Some might wonder, what is grief? Grief is the pain that accompanies the loss of a loved one. That is the sadness and suffering that we face after the loss of an important thing. In case you don't know the step that a person faces during grief, psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her book On Death and Dying describes them in this order: denial, anger, sadness, depression, and finally acceptance. But over the years, it was shown that most do not necessarily go through those steps. But it was hinted that grief is something of oneself that isn't very true. I would have liked to have learned about grief before I went through that. That could have stopped and reflected a lot of moments of depression, anger, sadness, and even guilt. Because it can also happen that you blame yourself saying, I should have paid more attention or I wasn't there long enough. You know. I feel that mourning is something that you never get over because after days, months, and even years, you realize that the person you mentioned will be eternal, goes from one day to the next. At the time, that was not too right. So how can we help someone who is grieving? It is very important then to know that as there are different types of grief, there are different ways to overcome it. It is important to know that the person's pain will always be there. At the beginning, some are deeply affected, while others are not aware of the loss of the that fears days but become aware that it dies. The best thing you can do is be aware of your future. Even if it is a person who loves you so much, you have to think of yourself. You cannot live All your activities, hobbies, friendships, among various aspects, and shall suffer for a long time. Do not do what I seriously recommend. To conclude, I want to ask you to take advantage of the time to spend with the people you love because you never know will be the last time you can talk to that person. In my case, my dad, etc.
Thank you so much for your time. Our next speaker is Francisca Sainz with her talk World Wellbeing.
Have you ever felt like you wanted to make a change to help the environment and be a better person but didn't know how? As we all probably know, there are lots of environmental issues that affect our health, such as global warming, air pollution, or water pollution. Since I started seeing all the issues the environment is going through, I became very worried and wanted to make a change. But I didn't know how I could help. Then I realized that I didn't have to do hard things to make my contribution. There are a million habits or little things that I could change from my routine to help the environment. I started by speaking to my parents, by telling them all these issues, and to see what small changes we could do in our house and in the family perfume factory. As we all know, some factories are a big reason for global warming and climate change. O2, toxic material, and gases like carbon dioxide and methane that are burned and pumped out into the atmosphere. So I asked my parents if they had made or could help me make a contribution to the environment. Started by asking my dad a few questions about his perfume factory and if he thought that that may be contributing to climate change. He told me that he doesn't think so because when he started planning how to build the factory, he took into account all these little issues and tried to change to help the environment. And then we started to think what changes we could do in our own house. The first small thing we changed was to buy water purifying shower to be able to drink tap water and to stop buying plastic bottles of water, which are guilty of the 12% of plastic in the ocean. This helped us reduce the amount of plastic we were consuming. We all probably know how bad plastic pollution is, but how exactly is it related to climate change? Only 16% of plastic in the world is recycled. Much of the plastic that doesn't make it to a recycling plant ends up in our rivers and oceans, which is not only dangerous for the animals and plants that inhabit them, but as the plastic slowly breaks into small pieces, it releases toxic gases that go directly into the atmosphere. On top of this, scientists say that microplastics affect the marine ability to absorb carbon dioxide, which is and release oxygen. And at least half of the Earth's oxygen comes from the ocean. We bought this jar approximately a year ago, in my family of which were 4 members. So we used to buy at least 28 bottles of plastic per week, which will be around 1,456 bottles of plastic saved. This is to show how a small habit change can turn into a really big one. Our goal is to reduce carbon footprint. If you don't know what that means, it is the total amount of greenhouse gases that we generate with our own actions. To reduce that, we can start by doing some little changes in our daily routine. For example, to start planting more trees in your house. A single young tree absorbs around 6 kilograms of carbon dioxide per year. To start carrying with you reusable bags every time you go to the market. An average reusable bag is equal to 700 plastic bags. To take shorter showers. If you shorten your shower by only 2 minutes, you will be saving around 37 liters of water. to wash your clothes in a lower temperature. This could save 19% more energy than with hot water. To turn off the lights and unplug electronic devices when they aren't being used. And to reduce any kind of waste, from purchasing less items to the amount of plastic not reusable that we consume. Another habit that I implemented in my house was turning food waste into compost. We keep disorganized waste out of landfills, where they are burned and generate methane and other toxic gases. And instead, we turn them into compost. With this in mind, it's time for us as a society to start to try by adding these small changes in our daily routine. So little by little, we can start by saving our world, that is the only one we have. I hope this helps you to realize how by doing things a little bit different, you can make a really big impact in the world. Thank you so much for hearing my talk, and I hope that
Listen to our last speaker, Leon Pache, with his talk, My Struggle with Concentration.
You may be thinking what a fifth-year student is doing giving his TED Talk with a fourth-year student. Let me tell you about my experience. Have you ever felt the inability to sit down to study or to do things at school, work or studies? Have you ever felt that you couldn't pay even a minute of attention? To this day, I keep trying to recover what I lost because of the COVID pandemic, how difficult the day-to-day of quarantine became for me when I couldn't concentrate. Well, this is what happens to me through the year of lockdown. Before the coronavirus pandemic, I was a really applied student. It was difficult to me to do maths, but nothing out of the ordinary. I did poorly in a single subject in the first and second year. When I reached third year and the pandemic began, my marks began to drop. It was difficult to me to concentrate on virtual classes, and paying attention was almost impossible. I assume this was due to the amount of time I spent sitting at the computer and being at home. I was stressed very easily and I was everything fast. It was very difficult to me to sit down to work. My college will pass me their assignments. I have to admit, and some of my test answers were copied many times completely from the internet. This led to me not being able to concentrate even 20 minutes. It was frustrating. It was horrible. Among my friends, I ended up understanding that I was not the only who went through this. In fact, a large part of my partners, who were also good students before the pandemic, did very badly in the years for almost the same reasons. Listening to this in some way comforted me. With the ills of all my friends, I did not feel that it was necessary to try to solve what is happening to me. That would have been a mistake, because the one who ended up hurting was mine. I also have to add that I'm a lazy person. It's not that school is difficult to me, but I don't want to work. A webpage called Madrid Salud publishes a study by a prestigious university in Madrid that explains that the adolescents, after spending much of the day on electronic devices, suffer anxiety and lack of patience. Since after this, they want everything faster. Another thing I went spending several hours sitting, they can experience physical changes such as of some type of alteration in the spinal column. It could also lead to obesity since they don't do any physical activity. It also explains that they have poor performance at work and lack of concentration. After a year of lockdown, it continues to be difficult to me to concentrate. My marks are a little bit better now because I focus. I still have a hard time doing my work if I don't use a computer. If you are an adolescent like me and you feel identified with this TED Talk, and perhaps you need a solution like me, I can give you some advice to try to help with the problem with technology. Something that helped me to solve this problem is to work close of one of my parents, so as not to be distracted. Another thing that helps me to concentrate is to close all the computer programs and only use the one program to write on top. While looking for the solution to this problem on the internet, I found some advice on UNICEF website. to help you focus and organize your environment and organize your day, so you don't lose track of time. And you get up, you can clean your room, tidy everything, you can maybe make some exercise, 30 minutes a day. It's a minimum and necessary. Another thing that is to make contact with your friends. Chat with them or do some school work together. With them, maybe you can listen to music, feel happy, and be in a good mood. This makes you feel better with yourself and with the people that around you. What I'm trying to show you with this talk is that you understand the frustration that the adolescents suffer through the lockdown. The frustration of not being able to see any friends or family, not being able to go out, not being able to concentrate. Well, with the return to class, everything is better and calm, but I think that no one of my classmates or friends would like to have to repeat the experiences if we can call it like it's. Thank you.
Bueno, hasta acá llegamos. Esperamos que lo hayan disfrutado. Muchas gracias a todos los que nos han acompañado el día de hoy. Felicitaciones a todos los oradores de esta tarde que nos han acompañado, nos han transformado con sus ideas. Agradecemos especialmente a todos los docentes y directivos del Colegio Montessori y a todos ustedes que se han acercado hasta acá para acompañarnos. Próximamente tendremos otro evento de la comunidad de Club STED de Luján, donde van a participar algunos de nuestros oradores con sus charlas junto a chicos y chicas de otros colegios de Luján y alrededores, que también tienen sus clubes STED, como el Colegio Jean Piaget, Colegio Inmaculada del Fabri y Colegio Dr. Ángel Gutiérrez. Será el próximo 29 de noviembre. Pronto les vamos a enviar la invitación. Gracias una vez más por estar presentes acá en este día tan importante para todos. Buenas noches.
Bueno, gracias a todos por el aguante. Quiero agradecer a Oli porque voluntariamente eligió este evento. Bueno, chao.
Que lo hizo muy bien, con muchas ganas. Ella es una de las egresadas del Club STED, como son uno de ustedes, egresados del Club STED. Se pueden quedar enganchados con lo que es STED en Argentina y seguir participando en todas las actividades que STED ofrece para estos chicos. Incluso hay gente que está muy interesada en dar su charla en español, como Sol Zapata, que seguro se engancha y sigue con esto. Y Holly también, ¿no? Sí. Bueno, también quiero agradecer a mis técnicos, Matilde, Tute Basile, ¿quién más estuvo por ahí ayudándome con las técnicas? Unos cuantos más. Así que bueno, buenas noches a todos. Gracias.